my brother was going into the 8th grade, he went to Camp Blue Haven for the first time, and he camped second session, and that was a 2-week session. And so this was the first time that he was going to be away from home, away from my mom and dad and me for 2 weeks. My dad tells the story that the moment he watched the bus drive away, he said his goodbyes and everything. He got into the car, and on the way home, Phil Collins' song, "You'll Be in My Heart" was playing from Tarzan, if you remember when that came out. That's a long time ago. He pulled over, and he sobbed. Because his little boy was going to be gone for 2 weeks, and this song really touched him. And ever since that song, and particularly those lyrics, "You'll Be in My Heart," have been special to my family. And I was taking, this was a couple years ago when Kinsey was pregnant with Jude, and I was very absent for a week because I was working on some grad school, and it was killing me. It was very, very difficult and extensive, very long research. I think it was a 25-page research paper. Not my forte, so it was hard. And she finally told me, "I'm just having a really, really hard time. I'm feeling like everything's falling on me. I'm, of course, very pregnant." And so we were laying in bed and crying, and I sang to her, "You'll Be in My Heart." And I was touching her belly where Jude was, and it was a very special moment to my family. So I want you to understand that when I tell you, "You'll be in my heart," I mean it. Very special words to my family, very special song. Plus, Phil Collins has a great voice. But I want to thank you for these last 2.5 years. They've been a wonderful time for me and my family. And I hope that you will also feel that they've been a great 2.5 years, and particularly to the youth group, "You'll be in my heart." And that doesn't mean goodbye. It just means you'll be in my heart. So, with that, now I feel free to begin the sermon. Let me start my stopwatch because I fear that I'm going to go a little bit long. Our text this morning is going to be Luke chapter 15. Luke 15. So have you ever watched House Hunters? Anybody? You ever watch House Hunters on HGTV? Well, if you haven't, the premise is pretty simple. It's a television program watching people trying to hunt for a house. Usually it narrows it down, actually always, it narrows it down to 3 houses. And out of those 3 houses, at the end, after you've seen all of them, and they are very nitpicky about every little thing, inevitably, they make their decision. And usually, what I've noticed, at least whenever I'm watching it, is that it comes down to 2. They always throw out one that they just didn't like anything about the house. It comes down to 2. One is this great investment, right? It's below their budget by quite a bit. They're going to be able to make some equity. And I'm thinking, it's a no-brainer. You go with this house. It's got a good location and everything. But then there's also the other house that is the bank buster. It's got everything on their checklist, except for the fact that it's $20,000 over their max budget. So, when it comes down to it, which one are they going to choose? Usually, you can guess if you've watched the show and you kind of get how they're leaning. You say, "Oh, great. They're going to make the wrong decision, and they're going to pick the bank buster." Or maybe, if we get out of HGTV and reality television, maybe you have a friend, maybe you have a relative, maybe it's been you, that you know that they just are going to make that bad decision. If it comes down to it and there's a right choice and a wrong choice, every time they're going to make that wrong choice, and you can see it beforehand. And it's because you know them. You know their heart. You know how they think. It comes through the relationship. Ugh, I bet you they pick this wrong thing. And inevitably they do. That's a story that we're going to be talking about this morning. The story of the prodigal son. Now, we'll also talk about the lost sheep and the lost coin. But we'll spend the majority of our time on the parable of the prodigal son. This guy who makes bad decision after bad decision, and it leads him further and further away from relationship with his father. And that brings me to a text that I want to read before we get to Luke chapter 15, and that is Exodus, obviously. Exodus. Chapter 34 says, starting in verse 6, the Lord passed before him. This is talking about Moses on Sinai. This is the second time that Moses is getting the Ten Commandments. And you remember that there was the golden calf. And when Moses came down, he saw them worshiping this golden calf. He threw down the tablets and destroyed them. And so the people are in the midst of this kind of conflict and this awkward period with God of they just created this great iniquity, this horrible sin, even though God already told them not to. And it's in the midst of that God makes a revelation about himself. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, or maybe yours says to the 1,000th generation, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin. But who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on their children and the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. And so the context of that is these people made a mistake. And God doesn't lord it over them, doesn't hold it over their head. He says, I'm merciful, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, slow to anger. And throughout Israel's history, they cling to this revelation that God made about himself. In Numbers, for instance, after the 12 spies are sent in by Moses to see the promised land, they come back with a bad report. They say, we can't do this. No, these are giants. We can't conquer it, except for Joshua and Caleb. And when God says, I'm so tired with this people. All right, Moses, I'm going to destroy all of them, and I'm going to start over with you. You know what Moses says? No, God, you can't. For you are a merciful and gracious God, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. You see, whenever the Israelites are on the side of, we need forgiveness, God, they really want this first part of God's revelation, his mercy and his love. They don't always want that whenever other people who are not privy to the relationship with God come to play. Jump to Jonah, if you will. This is Jonah, and you know Jonah's called by the Lord to go preach to Nineveh. Okay, and Nineveh was the capital city of Assyria, the world power at the time, and threatening to destroy the northern kingdom called Israel. And eventually, guess what? They do destroy Israel. And so I've always thought, it's got to be because he feared these people that he doesn't want to go. That's why Jonah doesn't want to go. Imagine if God were to call you to go to Syria today to convert ISIS members. That's uncomfortable, right? And what's your first thought? I don't want to do that because I'm afraid. I've always thought that was Jonah's reason. So instead, he flees in the opposite direction. He gets on a boat at Tarshish, and the Lord sends a great storm. He jumps into the ocean. A giant fish swallows him. 3 days later, regurgitates him. And he says, I guess I don't have a choice. I guess I'll go to Nineveh. So he drags his feet to Nineveh. He walks into the city, and he preaches, you should probably repent, or else you're going to burn. There's not a lot of heart in it. And when God saw that they did, this is verse 10 of chapter 3, how they turned from their evil way, God relented of the disaster that he had said he would do to them, and he did not do it. But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was angry. And he prayed to the Lord and said, "O Lord, is not this what I said when I was yet in my country? That is why I made haste to flee to Tarshish. For I knew that you are a gracious God and merciful, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and relenting from disaster." I knew you'd be gracious, God. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to see them burn. I don't want to be an agent of mercy for you. I want to be an agent of justice. And that's what the Israelites enjoyed about the relationship, is they felt that they had this privilege, this revelation that God made about himself. Part one, that he is gracious, he's loving, and he's merciful. But when it comes to other people, they want to see that condemnation, that conviction, that justice. And realize this is such an important verse throughout Scripture in the Old Testament, because it is one of the revelations God makes about himself. And so, with that in mind, let's look at our text, Luke chapter 15, because it starts with the Pharisees, people that would know this by heart. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him, and the Pharisees and the scribes grumbled, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he told them this parable. See, there's a problem that they have. If you are in America, we say you are what you eat. But if you're in this ancient Jewish time, that's not the case. It's you are who you eat with. And so in Luke, we see multiple examples. Luke chapter 5, whenever Jesus calls Levi, who is a tax collector, and he throws him this big party and he invites all of his other tax collector friends. You see, the Pharisees have this major issue because he's eating with tax collectors and sinners. And that's a problem. Because the wisdom literature, the Proverbs and Psalms, tells very clearly not to associate with wrongdoers, not to associate with the evil, not to associate with the sinful. So when you eat with them, Jesus, you are condoning their actions. That probably means you're participating in them as well. And so they say that he's a drunkard and a glutton. And their major problem is that he's eating with these sinners. And I want you to realize, okay, you all know the stories. The parable of the lost sheep, the parable of the lost coin, the parable of the prodigal son. You know these by heart. But do you know that these are given in response to these Pharisees grumbling and their problem of, why is Jesus eating with these sinners? Earlier he says tax collectors. So he told them this parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after that one is lost until he finds it? Now, I don't know about you, but if I get a 99 on a test, I'm pretty stoked. 99 out of 100 is not bad for all you mathematicians out there. I mean, I'm thrilled by that. But you see, it's not about the majority, or it's not about just getting 99 out of the 100 when it comes to sheep. And that's something that we don't really connect with. We don't watch sheep. That's like New Zealand's thing. That's England's thing. They have sheep. We don't have sheep. We have cows. So we don't really understand what it's like to be a shepherd. It's not important in our culture. And here's what you need to understand about sheep and shepherding, that they were a very important part of the Israelite culture. And then when the children were young, they would say, "All right, Jude," if I was a shepherd, "Jude, my little shepherd boy, we just had a newborn sheep, and I want you to come and name it." And he would say, "I want this one to be called Otis." And we'd say, hey, look, there's cute little Otis running around over there. And I'd say, here, what's this one named? He's John Bon Jovi, which I think is a great name for a sheep, by the way. They were pets. And how many of you, whenever you've lost a pet, have put up a flyer? Lost cat, lost dog. You see, this was a very similar thing. These were family animals. They weren't just, oh, well. I mean, they were like family, like we treat dogs and cats today. So when you lose little John Bon Jovi, you go looking for him. And I love this next part. Until he finds it. And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. Now, here's something you should also know about sheep, okay? They're very cowardly. You probably know that. But whenever they get scared and they get separated from the rest of the herd, their heart starts like just beating really, really fast. And they just start pooping themselves like crazy. They get stuck, and they make the worst decisions possible. Hey, there's a high ground, and there's this muddy bog. I'm going into the bog. Okay, they make the wrong decisions, and so this sheep has got to be nasty, disgusting. When I think of nasty, disgusting, I think of changing my own son's diaper. And whenever there's been that inevitable leak, and you just hold them straight out, and you go, Kinsey! Code Brown, help! I don't want to be touched. I don't hold him close to me. That's disgusting. But what does this shepherd do? In the filth that this sheep is covered in, he puts the sheep on his shoulders, smelling the nasty stench, being covered in the same filth that the sheep himself is covered in. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and all of his neighbors, saying to them, "Rejoice with me, for I found my sheep that was lost. I found Otis." And just so I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over the one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. That's oh, by the way, Pharisees, just so you know. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? Now, you should probably know this, right? It's most likely that these 10 coins represent this woman's dowry. If you've ever seen pictures of some Middle Eastern women and their dowry, their headpiece, it's usually kind of this it's not a necklace, it's like smaller than a necklace, which just kind of sits on their head, and then there's these 10 silver coins that are connected to it. And that represents, I'm a married woman. So which one of you women, if you were to lose your engagement ring, would not just turn over every pillow in the house? Check the vacuum bag, right? If you know it's in the disposal, you would never normally put your hand in the disposal. There's last night's avocado in there. It's disgusting. But it might be in there. And so you dig your hand in there, and you don't care about the nasty and the mush. And you find it, and you put it on your finger before you even clean it off. Because it's that precious to you. It represents the relationship that you have. See, this woman has probably lost one of her diamonds in her engagement ring, so to speak. And so she's turning over every piece in her house. It says that she has a lamp. Of course, she doesn't just click it on. This is a fire. This has oil. And it looks like a little dish, if you've ever seen one. They hold it, and it's got fire, and that's what provides their light. And most likely, she was living in a room the size of like a 1 to 2 car garage with a dirt and straw floor. Straw burns, by the way, if you're getting down and looking real close, and that's your only light. She grabs a broom because maybe hitting the silver will make a metallic sound whenever I sweep it. I mean, she's doing whatever she can. She's seeking diligently to find this coin. And when she finds it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I've found the coin that I had lost." And just so I tell you, There is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Notice at the end of both of these stories, there is this great sense of joy. Now on to the third. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. Now, if you're a Pharisee and you hear this, he's essentially saying, oh, Dad, go ahead and die already. I just want your money. How disrespectful. How unloving. And this is what the son is in essence saying to his father. I cannot wait for you to just pass, so I'm not going to. Give me what's coming to me. The Pharisees would be shocked by this. He's breaking the 5th commandment. This is a problem. So, the story continues. Let's make another bad decision. So he divided his property, as the father, between his 2 sons. And not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. So he ran away from home. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went out and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. Now, you probably don't know much about what's kosher, right? I don't know much about what's kosher, but I know pig is not kosher. What do I mean by that? Jews aren't supposed to touch pig. They're not supposed to go anywhere near it. It's an unclean animal. And so this really, truly represents a good kosher Jewish boy's rock bottom. He's starving. He's spent his entire wealth that was given to him by his father. We find out later, probably on prostitutes and reckless living. And now he's just so hungry. He's living and sleeping with the pigs. He's taking care of pigs. There is no worse thing to a Jewish audience than that. How far has he fallen from the grace of his father is what they're thinking. And so, when he came to his senses, or when he came to himself, he said, what am I doing? How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will rise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants. You see, there's 3 distinctions when it came to a master or a lord of a property. Okay, he had his sons. They were the closest to him, his heirs. They had his inheritance coming their way. He had his servants that were full-time staff that he treated like family if he was a good master. And then he had his hired hands. And these were the guys that whenever he really needed a job done, he showed up at Home Depot or Lowe's for a day laborer. Because they needed the money. So they'd go to the marketplace every day and they'd say, whatever you got, I'll do it. I'll paint, I'll hang sheetrock, you name it. I'll do it for my day's wage. And he's saying, I want to be one of those hired hands, one of those hired servants, because even they are so taken care of by my father. So he made this plan, he wrote out a speech, he rehearsed it, and finally he gets up and he goes home. Verse 20, and he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. What did he see? I could see Jude from a mile away, and I'm telling you, I know his walk. It's a little bit pigeon-toed. I know his walk. And you know your kids' walks, don't you? I know my brother's walk. I know Shaggy from Scooby-Doo's walk. But those that we're close to, that relationship, it gives us this privilege to know the person. So he sees his son, and he's walking just like my boy. But you got to remember, this kid's been living in filth for who knows how long. He's been sleeping with pigs. He's covered in the mud and the feces that they are all in. He's disgusting. His hair is grungy. Who knows what's in his hair? I mean, there's not modern sanitation, okay? Today, if you're dirty, you say, all right, go take a shower. They don't have that. He's coming home not only after all this horrible rock-bottom place of living with pigs, then he gets and takes a long journey where he probably doesn't even have shoes. His feet are ragged and disgusting. Who knows what he's stepped in? His clothing is probably ruined. He stinks of an unclean animal. What does the father do? He feels compassion. And he runs, and he embraces him, and he kisses him. He doesn't say, it's about time you come home. Do you know what an embarrassment you've been to this family? Do you understand that when you go out, you carry my name? It's not the reaction that he gives, is it? He gives one of compassion. And not only that, he runs to his son. And he's not wearing like gym shoes. Right? He's not wearing running shorts. He has to literally pull up his tunic and run across these fields to get to his son. And when he gets there, he doesn't care about the filth that he's in. He doesn't care about the mess that his son has made of his life. He hugs him. He kisses him. And the son hasn't even said anything. You see, this is the gospel, people. We have a father who's looking over the horizon, who knows your walk, who wants to see his children coming home. And the son, having rehearsed his speech, deems this is the time that's appropriate to give it. He says, Father, I've sinned against heaven and before you, and I'm no longer worthy. Remember that I am no longer worthy to be called your son. The father doesn't even let him finish. He interrupts him. He says, bring quickly the best robe, put it on him. He's yelling to his servants, quick, bring the best robe. Don't go in and bring out a pair of jeans and my t-shirt. No. Go into my closet. Get my Armani suit. Put this on my boy. Even in the state that he's in. I don't care. I want him to look like he's mine again. Here, let me give you the family credit card, son. Put the ring on his finger. This is a signet ring. He can put this on any piece of paper. And he's got the seal of his family. He can buy whatever he wants on credit. He says, put sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. A couple weeks ago, some of the kids asked what my favorite Bible verse was, and I wasn't exactly sure at the time, and it changes pretty often. But I'll tell you what my favorite verse is today. It's verse 22. But the father said to his servants, quickly bring the best robe and put it on him. Do you see the mess he's made of his life? Do you see the filth that he's covered in? Because I don't want anyone else to. When I take him home to his mama and his brother and his servants, I don't want them to have to see the wreck that he's made of his life, because that is between him and me. And I identify with the prodigal son. Because the mess I've made of my own life. I'm glad I don't have to tell you all the stupid things I've done. I'm glad I don't have to tell you all the people that I've hurt the terrible things I've said and thought and looked at. But I don't have to. Because we have a Father who's excited to clothe us in a new robe, the best robe, so that everyone else doesn't have to see the wreck we've made of our life. When they look at us, they see a son and a child of the Father. That's gospel. That is good news. Not everybody identifies with the prodigal son. And I know that. Some people identify with the older brother. We'll talk about the Pharisees in just a second. But you see, these parables are not about the lost sheep. They're not about the lost coin. They're not about the prodigal son, are they? We've mistitled them in our Bibles. Because these are about the Father. This is the story of the seeking shepherd, of the diligent woman, the parable of the forgiving father. These are stories that share the heart of God. A God who is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, willing to forgive sin and iniquity. We get to verse 25. Now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, "Your brother's come, and your father's killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound." And what is his response? It's not joy. What are you talking about? So he's angry. He refuses to go in with him. It reminds me of Jonah's reaction. This angry reaction. He doesn't deserve this. And so he's not going to go in and celebrate. He's not going to go in and eat with him. Doesn't that sound familiar? Who's Jesus really talking to? Remember, these are three parables in response to something, and that is the Pharisees grumbling about who's Jesus associating himself with. These sinners. And so here at the end, he's revealing this other side, this religious, noble side. The older brother, who's not going to just condone his brother's past and his actions. He can't. So his father comes out to entreat him. He says, "Father, look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat, as alone a fattened calf, that I might celebrate with my friends. When this son of yours," he doesn't call him this brother of mine, "when this son of yours came, who's devoured your property with prostitutes, you kill the fattened calf for him? How unfair." The father said to him, "Son, you're always with me. All that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad, for this brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." See, Jonah and the Pharisees and the older brother, they all have something in common. And that is, when they deem someone as unworthy and unrighteous, they want to see them burn. And it's because they're clinging to that second part of God's revelation back in Exodus. That part that says he will surely convict those who sin against him. He will not overlook sin. He will punish sin fully, even to the third and fourth generation. And they cling to that. Their hope is to that because they're saying, they're not worthy, but I am. I've earned the right, Father. I've been by you this whole time. I've never missed church. I'm here every Sunday, Sunday night, Wednesday night, and sometimes, I don't want to brag, But I take home some of the rags from the kitchen after potluck, and I wash them. I dry them, and I bring them back folded. All right? So, just saying. You kind of owe me this one. I've earned your grace. That's what it really all boils down to. The problem is they're missing the heart of God. See, Jesus, who had every right to be an agent of justice, decided to be an agent of mercy instead. Associating with the sinners and the tax collectors, the people of disrepute, because it was worth it to him to pursue the lost people. And so when I read this story, I'm reminded that I can see both sides. I remember being like the prodigal son. Sometimes I still make those bad choices that lead me away from the Father. And I'm so thrilled to know that he's ready to run with open arms to me, regardless of the filth. But there's a kid that I grew up with in the youth group. He's a little bit older than I am. And he was this guy that always made the wrong decision. Always. If there was a bad one to be made, he'd make it. So I remember whenever he went to Texas A&M, he had this great scholarship because he's brilliant. I mean, he truly is. He's a math whiz. And he goes, and his first semester he comes home with a .6 GPA. I mean, that's terrible. And I kind of laugh a little bit because I'm like, that's bad. He deserved that. But I knew he would. I knew he'd party. I knew it. I knew it. Well, come to find out, a few weeks ago, when I was home for Christmas, he's still been making bad decisions. He's now living in Colorado. And his dad is a pilot, so he flies all over, and he just so happened to be in Denver. Whenever he does, he met his son for dinner. His son was wearing long sleeves, really long sleeves. He even had them pulled over all but just his fingers. He was wearing a high-collared shirt. He looked really bad, really ratty. And the reason why, he had needle holes all over his arms. He's addicted to heroin. Do you know what I said? Do you know what I said when I first found this out? There he goes again. Always making the bad decisions. Where was my empathy? Where was my compassion? I want God to be running towards me, but when it comes to other people and I feel like they don't deserve it as much, I go, well, what are you going to do? The truth is, I need to be praying about this kid. I need to be praying that he doesn't run into a bunch of agents of justice in his life. He runs into some agents of mercy who are going to break through that barrier and say, trust me, I've come home, and it's worth it. You need to come home too. I'm excited. Whenever you do, guess who will be at your feast? This guy. I want to rejoice over your coming home. So I identify at times with Jonah and the older brother, and I think we all do. Because whenever we're doing the right thing, we have a really hard time having compassion on those who are making bad decisions. And what I want to emphasize this morning, church, is the importance of being agents of mercy. And because until the whole church, the church as a whole, not just this one, I'm talking about in the United States and in the world, until the church starts identifying more with being agents of mercy than justice, we're not going to have the impact that we hope we do. Because every time someone who's a prodigal son walks through those doors, we go, well, you kind of did this to yourself. By playing the agent of justice, we leave people out of the grace of God. That's not spreading the gospel, that's hiding it. And I think that at times we all fall prey to this older brother mentality. So what I want to encourage you today is that some of you have felt this pain of justice. See, some of you have been this person. Some of you, it's your brother or your sister or your children, have been really hurt by things that have been said to them. So, see, sometimes they've made these poor decisions. Sometimes they were in their control, sometimes they weren't. They've been hurt by things people have said. You've heard what people have said to your children whose marriage ended. Your brother or your sister has said to you how horribly they've been treated for not going to church, or for that one time that they disagreed about just an interpretation over something with an elder. They're almost discarded. How could you think that? They're thrown aside. Some of you have been those agents of justice. Right now, you're thinking about the very people that you have been an agent towards. And if that's you, and if you've been ugly to anyone, I encourage you to seek them out. To ask forgiveness, write them a letter. Let them know that that's not the heart that we want, because that's not the heart that God has. My appeal to you, Hampton, is that you will be a group of believers whose mission is to be agents for God. Not agents of justice, but agents of mercy. For God is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness, keeping steadfast love for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, but who will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and fourth generation. We can't pick and choose who God is. He can't be loving and merciful to us and then vindictive to another. He's both at the same time, and it's important that we understand that. It's important that we understand that. This is just as true today as it was whenever Moses heard it. God is gracious and slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, but he'll also by no means overlook sin. The difference, and where we come in, is that we need to leave being the judge up to him. He's the judge. He will seek out justice. Let's be agents of mercy, for after all, that's the very heart that Jesus had. His desire is that all of his children come home. Are you needing to come home? See, we serve a God who's desiring to run to you regardless of the filth that you're covered in. Clothe you anew. He'll clothe you in Christ so that no one will see the havoc and the mess that we've made of our lives. He wants you to be at home with him. Or maybe you've been one of these agents of justice, been sitting there, and if someone does come forward, your first thought's going to be, kind of saw that one coming. Can't be us. We have to be agents of mercy, not agents of justice. Whatever your need is, if you need to respond, if you need the blood of Jesus to clothe you anew, come now as we stand, as we sing.